Okay, now start writing. Okay, good. 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 Why don't you take care of your goods? ये होना चाहिए ना? Yeah. This is not right, I think.
नहीं, जब उसको लग रहा होगा कि तो वो अच्छे नहीं है।
You are. This is you are. Why don't you think you are good? This you will have to correct the spellings. Like you करना है किसके आगे apostrophe डालना है यहाँ पे. Okay. You will have to correct this one. And all W should be capital. Like this. You are when you're in this way with apostrophe. Good. Should be capital here. Don't pay the apostrophe. Where is the apostrophe? Good.
Stop. What?
Now this is the end of round 1. Or okay. Now stop. Right. Stop. Stop writing now. Okay, now start reading.
Why don't you like bananas? Why don't you have a pencil today? Why don't you bring your own stuff? Why don't you bring an iPad to school? Why don't you go outside with me? Why don't you bring your device to school? Why don't you think you're good? Why don't you think positive? Why don't you have any pets? Why don't you ever play with me? Why don't you think about others? Why don't you sit over there? Why don't you go to bed? Why don't you like vegetables? Why don't you have a bath? Why don't you play basketball?
Good. Now here.
Why don't you clean your room? Why don't you like going outside? Why don't you like math? Why don't you like apples? Why don't you ever go to the school camp? Why don't you like English? Why don't you like your class? Why don't you like baseball? Why don't you like the color? Why don't you study? Why don't you like to play games? Why don't you like high school? Why don't you bring your own glue?
Okay, you have numbered your sentences, but here we have to number it. 1. How many are these? 13. Okay. It should be capital, or it should always be capital. Both of you have committed the same mistake. You haven't written it, the first word capital. Okay. This one is capital. It's okay. It's right. But all the others should be capital. Here too. These should be capital. Good. Now you have written 13 and here 16. So both of you have done very well.